All right, so as I say, welcome. I'm Toby Newton. I'm the head of school at ICHK. I've been at ICHK now for, well, let's see, I think it's about 10 years. Initially as one of the deputy heads of school, then briefly as acting head of school while the founding principal, Roy White, was engaged in some other business. And then I took over in my own right 7 years ago now. So I know the school very well. I love the school very much, and I hope what's going to come across to you in the next 35 minutes or so is the affection that I have for the school and the sense of community that we've built up in the school over a period of time. So if you've not visited the school, this is the environs in which we find ourselves. This is the view from the top of the school looking out over Starling Inlet, Bridespool Road, Luk Gang, Nam Chung. And the reason I start with that is because we use this location, as you'll pick up during the presentation, we use this location constantly as a learning resource. We think we're extremely lucky. We're in one of the last really unspoilt areas of Hong Kong, and it is a phenomenal resource to have on our doorstep. What I'm going to be trying to suggest to you today is our answer to the question, what is school for? And I think if you were to ask most heads of school, they would come up with something like this Venn diagram. They would say that school essentially has 4 key aims. First and foremost for many parents, understandably, is that school delivers qualifications to their children. We know that qualifications are the key to the next door that they need to travel through, university, and therefore a critical part of any school's offer must be that we equip the students to take that next step. But there's more than just qualifications, of course. There's personal growth, part of which is likely to be social skills and confidence. You'll be wanting to see your children grow into confident, young adults, and they need to understand how it is that the world works. They're going to be taking a next step into that world, and it's an environment which is ever changing, as we know very well. Someone whose work has interested me for a long time, since I was based in the United Kingdom when I used to teach in London, is Guy Claxton. He's a professor of education who has a long pedigree of very interesting research. And Claxton conceives of school education as an epistemic apprenticeship. So epistemic coming from the notion of epistemology or interpretation. So what Claxton is suggesting is that school is an extended apprenticeship in coming to understand how the world works, what the world can mean for an individual, the way in which the world can be unpacked in order to live a productive and meaningful life. And as Claxton points out, this includes not just academic work, but as I was saying just a moment ago, also the social, emotional, and values dimensions of students' lives. It's the whole package. So a couple of quotes from some of Claxton's work. School is a protracted training in particular ways of thinking, learning, and knowing. And the point of an apprenticeship is not the immediate performance so much as the cumulative development that is going on behind the specific tasks. And that is certainly a philosophy that informs ICHK. So one of the things that I hope I'm going to be able to illustrate to you this morning is the way in which children at ICHK are constantly updated on their progress, not in a high stakes way, not in what's known as a summative way, sort of summing things up, drawing things to a conclusion, but in a formative way, a way that allows us to give them feedback that can then shape their future performance, and that this happens all the time. And I'll be saying more about that as the presentation goes on. So what kind of world are we preparing our students, your children, for? Well, we know we're at an inflection point. We've been through what are thought of as the first 3 industrial revolutions, and we're now entering what many feel to be the 4th. A industrial revolution which makes the connection between human beings and automated machines and other physical systems much more intimate. And as we know, as a byproduct, or maybe even the central concern of this industrial revolution, is all kinds of disruption in the workforce. And if you just take a moment to take a look at this diagram, you can see that the sense is that many jobs that in former years, and even quite recently, would have been thought of as very desirable, very sought after, are actually deeply at threat, given the transition into this fourth industrial environment. And what we want to be doing is, as far as possible, gravitating our students towards that top left-hand corner, where they are able to be rewarded, doing jobs which are interesting and which are not vulnerable to the changes that we're seeing in science and technology and socially more generally. So what kind of traits, attributes, qualities are going to be increasingly important as we move on into this age of the fourth industrial revolution? And you can see here that Forbes are suggesting that it's going to be people who can embrace change. We'll all have heard the notion that we no longer have a job for life, that increasingly people have to move between professions, between employments, that flexibility, adaptability, these are really key skills, that you need to be able to communicate, that the creativity is at the heart of much of what will be valued, and that the human touch will set a business apart. And that final line, applicants should expect a higher climb to get noticed, is part of the general inflation in terms of qualifications that we're seeing. Teachers are getting better at teaching, students are getting better and better at learning. What used to be a really stellar performance is now no longer quite so outstanding, and it takes a higher performance year on year to get yourself noticed. The World Economic Forum, 5 years ago now, published their, oh no, 5 years, sorry, 3 years ago, Future of Jobs report. It came out in late 2019. And they were projecting ahead 5 years to 2025. And these were the attributes that they researched, surveyed, and discovered to be the ones that were most in people's minds in terms of what was going to equip someone to be really well provided for if they were going to excel in the employment space. Leave you just to take a quick look at those. So you can see they fall into 4 different categories: problem solving, self-management, working with people, and technology use and development. So that's the scaffold, and then within that, a variety of more fine-grained human attributes. They broke it down into different areas. So this was the result of research that they had done with powerful and successful corporations and public bodies in each of these countries. And there's some really interesting little differences there between the work cultures. Again, give you just a moment to scan through those. But if you combine them together, this really is the list that they come up with: analytical thinking and innovation, active learning and learning strategies, leadership and social influence, complex problem solving, technology design and programming, creativity, originality and initiative, resilience, stress tolerance and flexibility, critical thinking and analysis. So that's a very demanding shopping list in terms of the kind of skill profile that people are going to be looking for in the world of work in 2025 and going forward from then. And the interesting thing in the report is that one of the authors, the chairman, Professor Klaus Schwab, makes this comment. And as you can see, he's suggesting that the change that's going to come in train as a result of the move into the fourth industrial revolution is of such profundity that there's never been, he says, a time of greater promise or potential peril. But his concern is that decision makers are too often caught in traditional, linear, and non-disruptive thinking, or too absorbed by immediate concerns to think strategically about the forces of disruption and innovation shaping our future. So the professor's view is that this is a really thoroughgoing change, and that anyone who's interested in ensuring that they are kind of future-proofed against the changes that are coming needs to be thinking very profoundly about the repercussions. And that takes us on specifically to, I guess, my role as the leader of a school. And when I think about this, it does give me pause for thought. If you do a Google search on 19th century classroom, you'll see the images that come up. And if you do a Google search on 21st century classroom, you'll see that the images that come up really aren't that dissimilar. Yes, there's more technology. There's more of a sense of the students sometimes sitting in groups. They're not all in serried rows facing the teacher. So there have been some changes, but essentially a 21st century classroom is pretty much instantly recognizable as very similar to the one that would have featured at the end of the 19th century. And if we think to Professor Schwab's point that we're too locked into linear, traditional solutions to what are new, complex problems, I think my view would be that traditional school is a part of that failure to adjust. This is where traditional school typically ends. And the issue we face, I think, is that this kind of way of sorting and evaluating young people just doesn't equate with the shopping list of qualities that we were given by industry, business, entrepreneurship a moment ago. So that's the context within which ICHK exists as we see it. There's a very complex world out there. It's changing rapidly. It requires, as a matter of course, a series of attributes and qualities which really aren't well served by the traditional schooling system. And another way of saying the same thing, you may be familiar with these kind of psychometric evaluations. This is one called Strength Finder. If you work in business for any length of time, in teams, in a leadership role, you'll probably be asked to do one of these. I think I've done about 6 in my time. And what they aim to disclose is your personal style, and then to match that up with the style of the other people with whom you're working so that you can collaborate in the most fruitful and productive way possible. And the point I would want to make as you look around this Strength Finder circle is ask yourself how many of those qualities are stretched, rehearsed by the typical school experience that leads to the exam hall. And I think if we're honest, the answer is probably half a dozen. So there's so much which is expected of young people once they leave school that is typically not taken as seriously as it could be within school. And I think in trying to address this, ICHK is by no means unique. And what I'm going to be talking about for the next 20 minutes or so now, is just our way of trying to include more of those attributes in the everyday school experience. So not as something which is kind of bolted on or supplementary, but something which is right at the heart of what we're doing, is to try to ensure that those qualities are found within the school experience. So yes, we still have our 4 key aims, but I think that the emphasis has changed somewhat. Whereas previously schools really were qualification factories, the idea was that you could almost measure the quality of a school by its place in a league table. And the league table was nothing other than what qualifications the students were leaving with. I think there's a wide sense now that the qualifications remain critically important, no less important than previously, but what the right-hand Venn diagram suggests is that personal growth, social skills, and a really intimate sense of how the world works are now much more important than they were, and in fact, even trump the raw qualifications. And we know that there are now many businesses, including some of the really big tech giants and other big players in the corporate world, who are increasingly turning away even from university degrees, and are much more interested in the kind of personal portfolio that people have put together, the kind of pet projects that they've executed, the empirical results they can prove on the ground, rather than just qualifications which speak to academic success, but no real life productivity. So along with many other schools, ICHK is exploring the ways in which we can deliver on that right-hand Venn diagram more successfully. But as I say, qualifications remain no less important than they ever were. And this is taken off our website. You're welcome to view it there, but it's just to give a sense of the success we've had now over the years. 9 years of graduates, always above the global average, often significantly so, and really pretty much on a par with all the other successful schools in Hong Kong, which are themselves in a very elevated position globally. So ICHK understands how important the IB diploma remains, and we're committed to ensuring that our students get the very best qualifications they can. Although, as I say, and as I will go on to illustrate, that's not where the story finishes. Just quickly to give a sense of what that latest average cashes out on, that's 36.4 points. Were you to compare that with A levels, it's quite complicated actually. It's not an easy comparison to make, because the IB points don't differentiate between higher level and standard level, of which you need to do 3 components of each. They don't differentiate in the point tally, although it does differentiate when you come to your tariff points, as they're called, in the university reckoning system in the UK. So 36 points at the very least, that is the same as 4 Bs at A level, but it could be as much as 2 A stars and 2 As. So it just depends how you've managed to compile those points in terms of the higher and standard level components that you've taken. But in any case, it's an extraordinarily high achievement. And that's average in a school where we honor all our students' desire to continue with us if they want to do so. So if your child studies with us between year 7 and 11, no matter what grades they receive, we will work with them to ensure that they have a productive year 12 and 13. And the vast majority of our students attempt the full IB diploma, there is now an option to do something called IB courses, which means that you drop some of the other non-central elements, the CAS, the TOK. You can find out more about these from our website. It means that there is still university places available for people who don't do the full IB diploma. So those are the qualifications, and as I say, all on the website, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of my presentation. And I'm just going to spend the rest of the time now talking about personal growth and how it is that we try to optimize our students' sense of who they are and who they could be. So we build on the excellent foundation that all your children will have received at primary school. To my mind, there really are a limited number of things, in fact, that you really want primary school to be able to do. The main thing, I think, is sociality. You want your child to be someone who can get on with others, who knows how to share social space, and who is able to enter into creative, rewarding relationships with other people, both their teachers and other children. But of course, you also hope they're going to be able to read and write, that they're going to have a sense of scaffolded inquiry, that they know how to go about satisfying their curiosity, and that they're just gradually going to be getting a clearer sense of who they are. And by the time they reach year 6, that's generally happened. So they join us. And really, it's not that much different in secondary school. We're still wanting to work on all those 6 factors, but the 7th factor for us is that strength finder, or a similar type of set of skills and attributes that I was talking about earlier. And what I've attempted to do in this slide is just give you a sense of the enormously rich and varied experiences that the students will have at ICHK in order to develop this sense of self with all those many personal qualities that come as a part of that. Something that we've done, some of you may be familiar with the idea of PERMA, which is the work of Martin Seligman, an American psychologist. And we've taken his idea of PERMA with its sense that positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment are really what add up to the good life. And we've slightly reformulated it to suggest that, yes, that's true, but you can think of a way in which it can be promoted that adds a few more elements. And so for us, it's really about relationships and then energy. If you get people who enjoy being in each other's company, who feel at ease, who feel that they've got each other's backs, then chances are you're going to promote energy. That gives the good feelings, which are really vital when a young person attends school. Coming out of that are meaningful, resonant engagements, and that leads to action and accomplishment. But right at the start of that equation, that formula, is this notion of energy. And that's hopefully what these next pictures demonstrate to you, is just the abundance of energy that we have in the school. And we are now able to take tours again. We had to put those into abeyance for a couple of years because of COVID, but if you would like to visit the school, we're very happy to show you around. And to be honest, there's just no substitute for visiting the school and having a sense of the atmosphere that prevails. We're really proud of the range of activities that we encourage the students to take part in. Today, actually, as I'm talking, we've got what we call a deep learning day, where we collapse the timetable for the year 7s to 9s. And some of the kind of things that you can see on this this slide are happening. There is a bike ride out today. There's no kiln building today, but there is some woodwork going on. And just generally, we try to open out the curriculum so that everyone can find something that they feel genuinely passionate about and that they can throw themselves into in the company of other people. Okay, so a few of the practicalities. This is what the school career looks like for a young person at ICHK. They start off in year 7 and 9 really following a curriculum that we've developed ourselves. We think of those as the apprentice years. Then they move into year 10 and 11 when they do IGCSEs and what we call Curriculum X. And Curriculum X is all these other opportunities that I'll be talking about in just a moment. We've been very fortunate over the last few years because having run our Curriculum X, we then came across something called the Mastery Transcript, which is a new qualification or a new way of evaluating students rather, or accrediting students from America. And I'll say a few more words about that in just a minute. The Mastery Transcripts allows us to formalize all the opportunities that the students are pursuing in year 10, 11, 12, and 13. And we issue our students with a Mastery Transcript along with their IB diploma if they choose to do so. There's no requirement for them to do so, but we find that usually around about 10 to 12 students each year take that opportunity. So the Mastery Transcript, as I said, been going now for about 4 or 5 years and graduated its first students 3 years ago. We were one of just 5 schools in the world who were able to issue Mastery Transcripts just at the beginning of COVID. We've continued to do so ever since. And we have around about 12 to 14 students each year who pursue this as well as the IB diploma. It's a nice addition for them. So in the Mastery Transcript, you have no grades, there's no standardization between schools. And the idea is that an admissions officer can look at it in within 2 minutes, get a strong sense of the qualities of the child who's gained the transcript. And that suits us perfectly because what we're doing with our students is giving them an extraordinarily rich secondary experience, which they then are able to capture and impress admissions officers with. Again, more practicalities. Total enrollment in the school at the moment is 420. We've no plans to go much bigger than that. You can see that we are growing year on year. So we have 84 year 7s who have joined us this year, 70 odd students in year 8 and 9. So for the last 3 years, we've been taking around about 80 students. We have seen a few students leave over the last 12 months. I think that's COVID related. They've left Hong Kong altogether. But the school continues to grow, but as I say, with no plans to go very much bigger than we are at the moment. We'll certainly never take more than 4 forms of entry, so that's 88 students. And we like it that size. We think it's the optimum size. We have classes that are big enough to have a good buzz and a good vibe about them, but small enough that the teacher really knows the students know each other, and we're able to have very positive learning relationships. We have 52 teachers at the moment, 3 outdoor educators, 22 support assistants. So we give a support assistant to all our year 7 and 8 classes just to boost them as they make those first transitional steps into their secondary careers. And we have actually 1 school counselor and 1 educational psychologist who works with us. That's the attrition rates. You can see that our staff are very loyal to the school. We did lose a few more this year again. They left Hong Kong. Things have obviously been a little bit challenging over the last couple of years. But generally speaking, our staff are very settled, very committed, very experienced, and really believe in what we're doing as a school. This is the kind of formula that we believe is so important. If we can get the students to adopt an academic mindset, part of which will lead to perseverance, endurance, resilience, that lends itself to academic behaviors, all those things that are the kind of sine qua non of any school. So having students who meet deadlines, who are punctual, who work together in groups, all those behaviors lead to academic performance. And that's really the way in which we like to try to grow our students, is not through putting undue pressure on them, but just encouraging them term by term to pick up the kind of behaviors that are going to end up serving them best as learners. I haven't really got time to go onto this in detail, but we use something called 5+1. 5+1 is something that we've adopted and created ourselves. It leans on the work of some educational theorists and child development experts. And there's much more on the website. So if you're interested, have a look on the website. And as I say, I'll share these slides and you can always do a little bit of research yourself. But what we believe is that 5+1 allows our teachers to share a framework within which we're going to work with the students, make them feel as if they are safe, valued, known, and able to meet their optimum level of growth. So the +1, as you can see at the bottom, is the unique needs of every learner. What we're convinced of is that no two children are identical. All of them have their own quirks and special interests and particular needs at any given point. And the most important thing is knowing them and having a good enough relationship with them that their particular needs can be expressed and met. We achieve this really by a very robust conversation between school and home. So we report regularly on your child's approaches to learning. So not what it is that they are achieving, but how it is they are going about affecting that achievement. And again, plenty on the website about this, but just to give you a snapshot. So an emphasis on approaches to learning. You can see it's version 5 there. We've been continually tweaking this over the last 6 or 7 years. And we believe that in giving timely, formative feedback, we can really make a big difference to the way that students perform at school. As well as approaches to learning, children at ICHK are given constant real-time feedback through Gibbon, which is our learning platform. A typical child in year 7, 8, and 9 can expect to receive somewhere between 70 and 120 pieces of written feedback each year. And that develops over the year, week by week, so that we have, as we call it, a no surprises policy. It's no longer a case that you attend a parents' evening and are surprised to hear how well or not well your child is doing. You're getting a constantly emerging picture, which is available to you and your child through Gibbon, allows for those high quality conversations that can address any issues, that can maximize success and really keep the learning journey ticking over. We try to present that in ways which are as intuitive and as accessible as possible. And through this level of communication, we find that we're able to promote real growth in students. So these are some snapshots of the way that our report system looks. And again, really the emphasis is just on ensuring that everybody in the triad, that's the child, her or himself, the school, and the parents, is fully availed of everything that's going on. What this means then is that we're able to graduate students in year 13 who, as in addition to their IB score, will also have a learning profile and a performance profile which speaks to their values, their ideas, the actions they take, and the way in which they manage themselves with other people. And if you think back to that Strength Finder diagram from earlier, you'll see that this is now a far fuller picture than just an alphanumeric score. And again, this is the way, probably don't have time to go into that in too much detail, but this is the way in which we report on this. This is all actually in service of the mastery transcript, but students who choose not to do the mastery transcripts will still get credits and will still get their own ICHK transcript at the end of their time with us. Okay, and so I'm just going to finish off. Last couple of minutes is just to say that this is a good time for you to be taking a look at the school and getting a sense of kind of quality assurance. We've just done a survey of our parents. We are having our CIS, our Council of International Schools, reaccreditation in February of next calendar year. That's this school year. And in preparation for that, we needed to run a survey of the whole community. And so this was taken around about February, I think, of 2021. Sorry, 22. So it's hot off the press. And what you can see is how our parents are responding to each of these questions. So these questions are standard across CIS's accredited schools, and that's pretty much every international school of any sort of real credence globally. We also are issued with the CIS aggregate average, which you can see in the pink dot. And what you'll see very gratifyingly for us as a school is that we're always above the aggregate. There were 51 questions that the parents were asked. I think I've shared 12 with you. There's another slide to come. In 51 out of 51, we were above the global average. And then I'm going to show you some student responses, and there were 47 questions there, and in 41 out of the 47, we were above the global average. So that's really gratifying for us. I've culled just, as I say, a dozen of the questions because I thought that would be more easier for you to sort of get a sense of what it is we're about as a school. So if I just let you quietly read down there, the idea is that the questions that I've selected out really are intended just to give a good picture of the way in which we kind of weave together the school as a place for young people to learn. So we believe that starts because everyone understands what we're about, the mission and vision, that the mission and vision guide what we decide we're going to do, that the students feel well supported, that their curriculum meets their needs, that they're challenged to learn and improve, and that everyone, as I was saying a moment ago, everybody is well informed on all the information that's coming out of that. And you can see, I mean, all the figures are very impressive for the CIS average as well. I mean, the international school system obviously sets a very high bar, and we're really pleased to be managing those challenges as well as we are. Here's the second set. Again, just leave you a couple of minutes to look over those. You can see the kind of values that CIS are promoting. Schools should be supportive, that teachers should be skilled, that the spaces themselves should be properly suited to learning, that technology should enhance the parents' understanding of what the child is doing, and that's everything I was saying about with Gibbon. And the reporting system, that the school needs to effectively manage parent relationships. Critically important that we want parents to be involved every step of the way so that we have a constant dialogue aimed at moving students on as sympathetically as possible, and that communications between home and school are such that the full picture is understood all the time. So that's the parents' responses. And then if I give you the students' perspective, again, just give you a couple of moments to read through these. Always you'll find that the students are just slightly less positive than the parents. I think that just says something about the teenage frame of mind, but very, very high. And again, really genuinely gratifying for us as a school that feels that we place students at the heart of everything we do, and in which really we want what we call a safe, fair environment, an environment in which students know there's every chance they will make mistakes, there's every chance they'll get things wrong, but we're here to support them when that happens. And actually that's the way to learn. And then one more slide. And again, I think that tells a very robust story about what we're achieving as a school. Okay, so just finishing up now, and I'll leave some time for questions and answers. Should you have any? If I had to sum up what it is that we're trying to achieve as a school, these are some of the really critical attributes that we want to see our students given the opportunity to rehearse, stretch, develop, and anchor in themselves. So leadership, empathy, responsibility, patience, humor, and resourcefulness. And then, even more important, joy, real engagement in life, verve, energy, a sense of excitement, and just a love of being on planet Earth. And we believe that if a student graduates with that set of coordinates, the rest of their journey is more likely to be rewarding for them and the people who know them. So this photograph is one that I use constantly. The two girls in the middle have left us now. They're both at university. If they got given $1 for each time I show this photograph, they would be able to retire for life. But I love it. And as you can see, superimposed across it is that Strength Finder circle. And I think that what you see in the picture are two young women who really are demonstrating all those different human characteristics. So this is them working as outdoor leaders for the school, in charge of organizing, executing, leading an opportunity for some of our primary partner students, and doing it with joy and a real love of life. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm going to stop there in terms of the presentation. Now, I know that I'll have some very confident people in the audience. If you would like to ask a question, by all means, just stick your hand up. If you would prefer to type it into the chat, you can do that. I can see a hand up. Abigail. Yes, Abigail. Would you like to ask your question?
Abigail is my daughter.
Ah, okay. Father of Abigail.
Parents of Abigail. My wife and myself are here. We enjoy your presentation. Thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to understand the school at a deeper level. We actually attended one of the on-site visit years ago when the environment was easier for all of us. I have some questions. I understand the school is located in a very nice piece of Hong Kong. And could you give us more example of how you're taking advantage of your location? And I see you have 3 outdoor educators.
Correct.
Yeah, so that would be my first question. And then my second question is, Abigail enjoys chess and gymnastics. Yeah. And I wonder what sort of extracurriculum activity or clubs that are available to students. And yeah, that would be our questions. Thank you.
Okay, those are great questions. Thank you. And really nice opportunity for me to say a little bit more on both. So in terms of our locale, we basically aim to get out into it as often as we possibly can. So one of the things that we run from year 7 is an outdoor program. And that just is threaded through the school experience. So it's not something special. It's a program that you follow. It's built into the curriculum. So for example, we've just had each of our year 7 classes has spent a Friday, not in lessons, but actually out at Bride's Pool or Nam Chung, doing stream climbing. Let's think, what do they do? Rock climbing, abseiling. And this continues year by, so each year it becomes more sophisticated, a little bit more challenging. Our science classes regularly go out and use things like the mangrove swamps or the rice paddies as ways of making their science lessons more locally focused and giving the practical on-the-ground insight that comes with visiting a location. We do something called deep learning, which I've mentioned today. So we've got a deep learning on right now. Deep learning is when we collapse the timetable for usually 3 or 4 days, and the students go out and do something which gives them the opportunity to really immerse themselves in a learning opportunity. And some of those things are always in the local area. So they'll usually build on the outdoor program for the people who are really keen, and they'll just take it that technical experiential step further. So the environment is something we try and get out into as often as we can. We also just encourage the students to, for example, every lunch hour we have what we call the temple run. There's a temple at Nam Chung, and students run there just as a way of getting some fresh air and getting out of the school environment for a minute, really, and getting some sun on their backs. When it comes to the ECAs, we have extracurricular activities on a Tuesday. Instead of having period 5, so our day starts at 8:15 with 15 minutes of tutorial time. Every child is in a tutor group, and the tutor is the person who's tasked with sort of knowing the child as well as possible and orchestrating their school experience for them. 8:30 is the beginning of lessons, and they run through until 3:30, 5 lessons a day. Now, on a Tuesday, we don't have the 5th lesson. That's an activities session. And the things that you've mentioned, so chess, for example, is almost always one of the activities that's offered. And things like gymnastics, to be honest, come and go depending on the level of interest shown by students. Obviously, we need to get a kind of a minimum number before we're able to offer an opportunity. Much of the ECA program happens off campus. So we take advantage of all the various different sporting, coaching, opportunities that are available in our part of Hong Kong. And we also, in addition to that, have a sporting program that tends to run on Wednesdays and Thursdays, because those are the days that other schools use. So that's when we'll have competitive sport, football, volleyball, and touch rugby, and basketball are the sports that we tend to field teams in from year to year. Okay, so I hope, does that answer your questions?
Yes, you did. I'm very envious of them. I wish I have had the chance to attend ICHK when I was younger.
So do I, both for you and me. No, I genuinely do. Yeah, I was talking to someone just recently who visited the school and was saying that maybe I'm quite unusual as a head of school, because I didn't really enjoy my secondary experience myself very much. And so a lot of what I've done since has been to try and evolve the school that I felt I wanted to go to, but didn't have the chance to go to as a child. So yeah, thanks. I hope if Abigail does come here, she really enjoys it. What we're constantly doing is listening to the students themselves and asking them what it is that they would like us to do. We have a very vocal, very active student representative council, which has a big part to play in the way in which the school continues to evolve. So thanks for that couple of questions. Anyone else got a question? As I say, if you don't want to put your hand up, I can see there's someone's written in the chat. Explain, excellent question. Okay, so the question is, would I explain further how ICHK arranges the pupils to adapt from year 6 to 7? Okay, well, that's a really lovely question. Thank you. Happily, this year, it looks as if we're able to go back to something that we used to do as a matter of course before COVID. So one of the things that we do is we invite the students up to school for a couple of experiences while they are in year 6. So we do something called Wild Science, which actually speaks to the question I was asked a moment ago. So Wild Science is an activity that we run for year 6 students out in the local environment. It's run by our senior students, and they introduce the young kids to, you know, what does science look like? What's the scientific method? How do you practice science in a real world environment? And the year sixes usually really enjoy that. It's usually in a stream. They usually get a bit wet and have some fun. Then we bring them up for a taster day, and I think we've agreed that with our 3 feeder primaries. That's coming up, I think, in early October. And then we have something called transitions. Now, I believe that one of the other PIMs that you've got the opportunity to attend if you want is being run by Nellie Loy Fong. Nellie is an educator who we brought into the school specifically to run a transitions program. So she is an American national who, in America, they have middle schools, which I think is a really good idea, where they kind of do a segue between the primary and the high school experience, and they call that middle school. The British system doesn't really have that. The British system tends to just ask year sixes to sort of suddenly make this leap into year 7. Nellie's job is to ensure that that is as seamless and as sympathetic and as well managed as possible. So for the whole of year 7, the students have 1 afternoon a week, which we call transitions, when they very explicitly are eased into the high school experience. And the other thing we do, again, goes back to what I was asked a moment ago. What typically a year 7 student will find that many of the weeks they spend at school in those first months are not full 5-day weeks in class. They will have a day of either activity, outdoor activity, or they'll have a deep learning experience, or they'll have some other visit or something which gets them out of the classroom and into a slightly different kind of headspace. What we, you know, if I go back to that 5+1, and I haven't got, you know, a time to go into it in real detail here, but part of 5+1 is the work of an educator called Kieran Egan, who comes out of Canada. And what Egan does, which I'm fascinated by, is he describes 5 cognitive dispositions from birth through to kind of adulthood. And what he says is that 2 of the middle ones are romantic and philosophic. And the romantic disposition is really kind of around stories and stimulation and the kind of the biggest, the longest, the fastest, really exciting heroes, these kind of things. And the philosophic, which follows it, is much more into kind of completism and systems and structures and etymologies. And for Egan, the art is, how do you take this romantic learner and allow them gradually to transition into a philosophic learner while still retaining the romantic? Because none of us ever completely lose any of those things. If you watch a Hollywood film, you know it really speaks to the romantic in you. And that's one of the things that we speak about constantly as a school. So when I do lesson observations, I'll go into a year 7 maths session and I'll watch it. And at the end, I might say to the maths teacher, yeah, it was good, but was it romantic enough? So, you know, is your maths teaching romantic? By which I mean, is there enough there that a younger student who's not yet committed to maths programmatic qualities, which become a real draw for people when they get to about 15 years of age, they get really lost in the way in which maths can answer just about anything, but they're not necessarily there when they're 11, 12. So, you know, are you still holding on to that curiosity, that interest by being romantic? And what that often looks like is, well, let's go outside, let's measure the building, or let's work out how many M&Ms we can fit in this space. These kind of things. You're doing good maths, but you're doing it in a way which encourages a younger student to remain engaged and find it, as I said earlier, resonant. So that's the way in which we try to ensure that the year 6s, both when they're year 6, feel that they are conversant with what the school's doing, feel that they know that there's already people that they've come into contact with at the school. And then when they arrive, we ensure that their experience is a gradual, incremental, sympathetic one that allows them to grow at their own pace into high school students. One of the things I talk about a lot is caterpillars with wings. I think this is what a lot of schools do, is they take these little caterpillars and they just bolt a pair of wings on and say, well, there we are, fly. And that usually ends in a crash, to be honest. So what we do is, you know, we allow the students just to organically grow into this new disposition, this new philosophic frame of mind. And as long as they get there by kind of year 10, there's no problem, because then the GCSEs are beginning, and that's what the GCSEs ask of them. Okay, so Nancy, I hope that helps, and that provides a good answer to your question. Anyone else got any other questions? Either stick your hand up or just type into the message. Okay, it looks as if that is it, and we are pretty much spot on an hour. So I'll just finish off by thanking you really sincerely for joining me this morning, and saying to you that if you do want to get in touch, by all means, please do. We are a small school. We feel ourselves to be a community. That's the strength of what we've been achieving over the last however many years. It's really shaped us very well through COVID. When you look at those survey results and you realize that those were taken 2.5 years into COVID, you understand the strength of the community, the endurance, and we achieve that really because we ensure that there's good communication. So just send me an email. I'll always get back to you. If I can't answer a question, I'll point you towards someone who can. If you'd like to visit the campus, you'd be very, very welcome. And any other issues that come up after you've finished this this Zoom meeting, because I know always things always spring to mind the minute something's over. As I say, just stick them in an email and I'll very happily get back to you. Okay, so with that, thank you ever so much. It's now 11 o'clock. We've spent an hour in each other's company. I hope that you found it informative, and I hope that you feel that ICHK is a school that you would like to continue to take seriously. We're very proud of what we're achieving, and we would love to see you either up at the school or at one of our future events, or better still, when you're the parent of one of our existing children, if you make that decision. So thanks ever so much. I'm going to end it there. Thank you. Have a lovely day.